everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I like to talk about books, and in this reading vlog I'm going to be reading Dracula for the first time. So as you know, if you've been watching my channel, I like spooky books, and so I feel like I'm not doing myself justice if I don't read the spooky classics. One of those being Dracula. I have heard such good things about Dracula. I have friends who love this book so much that they carry it around with them everywhere they go, and they mark it all up, and it's just like one of their favorite books ever. And I just never expected that because it's a classic, and I just always feel like classics are going to be boring or too hard to read or just, you know, not a favorite book. But I feel like it's finally time that I give Dracula a try. So I have this beautiful edition of Dracula that I just love so much. I got this from Barnes & Noble. It has a quote on the back. It's got these black edges. It's just really, really pretty. But I don't know if I'm actually going to want to read this copy because it is so beautiful and I don't want to harm it. I actually also have this copy that I got for apparently $6 a long time ago, and it's just a paperback that I don't care about as much. So you might see both of these copies alternating throughout the video. I don't know. We'll see which one I actually end up reading. In terms of plot, I don't know. I know there's a vampire. That's all I know about it. That's literally it. So I am ready to just be surprised and have a spooky good time. Dracula, but also really quick update on my life. I cut my hair. I took like 5 inches off. I don't know if you're even gonna really be able to tell because of the framing of my videos. It probably won't look much different for you, but I feel like a new woman. So just wanted to address that because if you do notice in the videos, it would be kind of weird if I didn't say anything. But yeah, anyways, Dracula. So I'm only a little bit into this book. I'm just about 33 pages in. I've read the first couple of little chapters and I'm having a little bit of trouble getting into the book. It definitely feels older the way it's written, and it's just moving a little slow, and it's like just really dense so far with just the description and the way it's written. So I'm just like waiting to figure out what the story is about, trying to get to some action. I'm also listening to the audiobook for this, and that is really helping a lot. I really enjoy the audiobook. I really like the voice of Dracula specifically in the audiobook, so I think that's going to really help me get through, and I do think I will end up enjoying this story. I think it's just going to take me a little bit longer to like really get into it and really be excited to read it. I had no idea what the story was going to be about, and as I was starting, and you start reading Jonathan Harker's journal entries are what you're reading in the beginning. That's all I've gotten the perspective of so far, and I was like, who the heck is Jonathan Harker? So then I finally read the description on the back of this book, and it seems like this dude Jonathan is coming to work for Dracula, but he doesn't realize that Dracula is like a vampire, but like everyone in the town kind of does, it seems like, and they're like giving him hints along the way, whatever. Then he gets there, is with Dracula, realizes what's going on, tries to flee away, go back to England with his lady who he's trying to marry, but then Dracula follows him, and it sounds like it's like a cat and mouse type game. I don't know. I had no idea that's what it was going to be about. So now that I have like a perception of the story, that makes me feel better about it too, like knowing what I'm getting myself set up for. And yeah, I think I'm gonna like it. I'm just having trouble getting into it right now. Hello. I have been reading a lot of Dracula and it's flying by, and I have not checked in with you yet, so I need to give a couple of updates. So I'm currently around page like 300 of this book, and there's about 450 pages in this version, so I'm really flying through it. I know when I first checked in, I was saying it was kind of slow and I was having trouble getting into it and I wasn't sure, but at like 20 pages or wherever I was then, I really had no idea what the story was going to be like. So I think if I had known a little bit more about the story, I would have realized it was just setting up the story. I actually don't think this is a very slow-paced book. I think it's pretty fast-paced and a lot is happening, and it's written in such a clever way that I kind of can't believe it was written so long ago, and I just really like it. So to give you some updates without getting into any spoilers, this story starts when this guy, Jonathan Harker, is going to stay with Dracula for like a month. It's just, you know, this guy he's going to like work for or do something. Then he starts to realize, as you know, as the reader, Dracula's a vampire, duh. And he starts to realize the weird things going on with Dracula, and he starts to get really scared for his own life. And the small details in this book are what make it so good, I think. So I don't even want to tell you like some examples of things that have happened, because I just think that is the best way to experience this book, is to really not know much about it, and that just the creepy details you get and the suspense that is built up is so amazing. That period of time in the beginning of the book where he was at Dracula's castle for like a month, and all of the creepy things that Dracula was doing and the ways Jonathan was starting to learn more about Dracula were just really well done. And that's only the beginning of the book. So, you know, Jonathan has this girl Mina back home who he's trying to marry, and he wants to evade Dracula to go back to Mina and be happily ever after. So he does end up getting away from Dracula. He ends up in like a hospital. He's really traumatized from his experience, and he has like repressed all of his memories of it, but he has his journals that he has where he has written down everything that happened, and he gives it to Mina and says, I need you to take care of this. Don't let me read it. I don't want to know what happened. I am too traumatized. Just don't want to remember anything about it. But if like anything were to ever happen where you ever need to like read these for any reason, here's all my experiences. And she's like, okay, cool. I'll protect that for you. Honestly, Mina is the best. But then all these other characters start getting introduced. And at first I was like, who are all these people? Why does this matter? I have like a table of contents in the beginning of this book so I can see what the chapters are, because everything is like a journal entry or a newspaper clipping. And so I was seeing the names of who the journals were coming from. And I was like, why is Dr. Seward and his journal such a big part of this book? But it just makes a lot of sense now. But at first I was kind of confused. Mina has this friend Lucy, who is this other Victorian lady who has 3 different men who are her suitors and propose to her. She ends up accepting the proposal for one, but all the other men still stay in the story and become pretty important parts of the story. And then Van Helsing also comes into the story, which like I didn't even think about that being a character from Dracula that was going to be in this book. So that has also just been super cool. I feel like I'm able to put the dots together of a lot of just like cultural references and vampire stories now, and it's just really neat to see some of the origins of that in this book. And to finish telling you what the basic plot of the story is, so Jonathan evades Dracula, but then Dracula follows Jonathan and starts interfering with all of these other people in their circle, and it is just done so well because like I said, everything is told in these journal entries, but you don't get the perspective of Dracula. You do not get close to Dracula. And something about reading these diary entries from all these people who don't know about Dracula at first, or don't know certain places and ways he's interfering with their life, but you as the reader start to pick up on that, just adds so much suspense and like dramatic irony, I guess, because you're also waiting for the characters to figure out what's going on. I just am really loving this. I think it was really well done. I think it's ahead of its time the way it's written. It does not feel super old. I'm really staying engaged in the story. I am flying through it. I had to stop myself and film this update. Since I am just doing one vlog for this book, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna finish the book and have not checked in. So I had to sit down and just let you know, I'm absolutely loving this. Don't want to give any spoilers in this video, but just know, incredible suspense, great creepy moments, really fast paced, action packed, lots of interesting characters and the ways they're coming together and being compared to one another, and overall, a very good time. Dracula. I don't know how I feel. This book was such a journey and I had so many different feelings while I was reading it. Overall, I definitely like the book. It is definitely one of the best classics that I've read, but I was just sometimes loving it and sometimes not loving it. So I don't know, kind of weird. But I think I would give this like a 4-star rating, all things considered. In the very, very beginning, I had a little bit of trouble getting into it, but then once I was like 30 to 50 pages in, I was like fully in. I was very interested. I really liked the beginning section of Jonathan Harker being at Dracula's castle. And then I was really surprised with where the plot went from there. And it felt like a lot was happening. There were a lot of characters being introduced, but I was really enjoying it. I really liked the way it was laid out in the epistolary form so that you were distanced from Dracula, and that really just made you feel that same kind of creeping dread of him being this presence nearby, but not directly inserted in the story, which was really nice. It's just that something in like the last 100 pages, I was just getting a little over it, I guess, at that point, because I don't know if it felt predictable of how it was going to all wrap up, or if it just felt like it had been going on for so long and that these things kept happening to these characters, but I was just less into it by the end of the book. But still, overall, really did enjoy it. Really do think this is like one of my favorite classics that I've read, so would recommend it. One of the things that I didn't love so much is something I can't really blame the book for because it was written in like the 1800s, but just some of the basic like concepts and themes that are being talked about in this book, like the way women are portrayed in the book and the way Mina and Lucy are juxtaposed against one another as different Victorian women, and just all these ideals about like the perfect Victorian woman, and the way the men like treat Mina and act like, we can't let you be harmed, you know, you have to stay protected, you can't be involved in anything, and just try to subdue her. But then she ends up being the one who has like the most intellect and the most reasoning and the most strategic logic for getting around some of the problems that they have. So they really underestimate her a lot in this book, but I guess at least she's still written to be a strong woman, which is kind of nice. So I don't know, just have complicated feelings about some of that. There's also a lot of like Christianity talk in here, and redemption and cleansing the soul before death, and that was just all a little bit overkill to me. But in general, I think there's still a lot more I want to learn about this book. I've been reading some like analysis stuff on the characters, and I really want to dig more into that and just pretty much how you would like study this book in a class. I'd really like to read more analysis of it, analysis of the characters and the themes and the settings, and really just dive into it because there's a lot in here that you can analyze. And this edition also has literary allusions and footnotes to reference in the back that just explains some of the things that are being mentioned for particular parts of the story. There's quite a bit. It's the last like 20 pages or so in the back of this book. And in the beginning of reading this, I was going and reading those allusions and the footnotes as well. But after the first couple of chapters, I stopped doing that because some of it felt like it was sort of spoiling some things and like telling me how I was supposed to be feeling about characters. So I do want to go back and read those now and replace myself in those parts of the story to understand those things. And I think that will help me appreciate it even more. So overall thoughts, I think this is pretty fun for a classic. I think this would be really fun to read for a class in school. I wish we would have been able to study this in one of my classes. It would have been so much fun. I know earlier in the vlog I said that this felt like ahead of its time with the way it was written. In that, I meant that with it being written with like a bunch of multiple perspectives, that felt very ahead of its time because I don't typically see that in a ton of classics, but everything else about this book does place it pretty far back in history, so it's not super ahead on ideas of feminism or anything like that. Don't think I meant that. But yeah, I think it was a good time. I also couldn't help but think about other vampire books that I've read as I was reading this, or other illusions I've seen in the world that I am now understanding, having the context of this book. And the thing that stood out to me the most is the book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. That is a book I have pretty complicated feelings about, and now I kind of see why, because that book is very much drawn from Dracula, like the original Dracula, in the way the vampire is created, in the way conversations about feminism are introduced into the story, down to like the details of rats being a pretty big part of a particular scene in that book. So I think if you liked that book, or if you just liked the vibe of it in general, I think it'd be worth reading Dracula if you haven't already. I think you would like it and see the roots of the story. But like I said, I have complicated feelings about that book. Don't know where I stand on it. But for Dracula, overall, I think I'm gonna give it a 4-star. Had a good time reading it. It's not a favorite of all time. I don't even know if it'll be like a favorite book of the year, but in terms of the classics I've read, it is definitely a standout and I would recommend it. So that is it for this video. Like I said, I'm going to be digging more into understanding this book more and reading more analysis on it. I'll leave some links in the description below if I find any good like articles or resources that explain anything about this book that I have yet to learn. But I'd also be interested if you have any commentary, you can leave that in the comments below on if you love this book or hate this book or why. I've already been getting some fun Instagram messages from people after I posted that I finished this book, and we've just been able to talk about it a little bit, and that's been super fun. So definitely would like to continue that in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Dracula. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!